The Atma Upanishad in simple English, presented by Svayam Prakash Sharma. Brahm is the soul of the universe. We begin the Upanishad by an invocation to the greatness of Brahm. That Brahm is whole and complete in all respects. This world is whole and complete in all respects. This world has come out of that very Brahm. And even though this world has come out of that Brahm is not affected in any way. It does not diminish in any way and remains as before, whole and complete in all respects. Om Shanti, 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 Om. The Atma Upanishad is part of the Atharva Veda and it deals with the doctrine of the three Atmas, of the three selves. These three are the outer self, which is the physical body, the inner self, which is the mind, and the supreme self, the Purush or the Param Atma, which is Brahm, the soul of the universe. The teacher here is the sage Angiras. The Upanishad. This is what the sage Angiras taught. He taught that the Purush or the supreme self manifests itself in three ways. One, as the outer or the external self. Two, as the inner self. And three, as the supreme self, as Purush, the self or the soul of the universe. Now we discuss each of these. First of all, we discuss the outer or the external self. The outer or the external self is the physical body. The physical body is made up of skin, bones, flesh, marrow, hair, fingers, thumbs, hands and feet, vertebral column, nails, belly, navel, ankles, genitals, hips, thighs, cheeks, brows, forehead, sides, head, arteries, nerves, eyes, ears, nose, blood, etc. This outer self, which consists of the physical body, is subject to birth and death. The physical body is born and the physical body dies. The outer self is born and the outer self dies. Next, we come to the inner self, which is the mind. The inner self is that which perceives and which experiences the outside world, made up of the five basic elements of earth, water, fire, air, and space. The inner self is subject to likes and dislikes. The inner self is subject to pleasure and pain. The inner self is subject to delusion, to doubt, and to misunderstanding. The inner self is subject to lust, to greed, to desires, and the like. The inner self has memory. It remembers past events and it can recall the past. It understands and it has the ability to distinguish the subtle nuances and the variations of language and expression. The inner self has the ability to enjoy song and dance, music and the fine arts. The inner self enjoys the objects of the senses. The inner self knows to read and to write, and to distinguish between the scriptures such as the Purans, the Nyaya Shastras, and the Dharma Shastras, etc. The inner self has the ability to attract and to draw others to itself, and the inner self has the ability to act, the ability to do actions. This is the inner self. This is the Atma. And finally, we come to the highest self, the Purush, the Param Atma, who is adored and worshipped in the scriptures. The Param Atma, the Supreme Self, can be realized through the path of yoga as one's own self, as one's own Atma, by controlling the breath and by withdrawing the inner self, by withdrawing the mind from the objects of the senses, and then looking inwards. The self is subtler than the seed of a banyan tree. The self is subtler than the tiniest seed of grain, and the self is even subtler than 100,000th part of the thickness of a strand of hair. The self cannot be comprehended, nor can it be grasped or caught. The self is not born, nor does the self die. The self does not wither away. The self cannot be burnt. It cannot be pierced or cut. It cannot be moved. It cannot be dried. It cannot be divided or split up. The self is far, far beyond ego and the senses. The self is above all the gunas, the qualities, the attributes of nature, such as Satgun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. He is above them all. He is the eternal observer. The self is the eternal witness, without any attributes or qualities. He is the pure. He is the Atma without limbs. He is the subtle. He is the one without parts. He is spotless. He is without any taint. He is taintless. He is free from ego. He is free from self-illusion. He is free from sound. He is free from touch. He is free from taste. He is free from forms and shapes, and he is free from smells. He is changeless. He does not change. He is desireless. He has no desires. He is all-pervading. He is present in everything and in everyone, and he is present everywhere. He is inconceivable. He is beyond the conception of the mind. He cannot be described. He is beyond description. He purifies the impure and the unholy. Actions or works do not stick to him, nor do the fruits or the effects of those actions or works stick to him. That is the highest self. That is the Purush. Yes, that is the highest self. That is the Purush. This concludes the Atma Upanishad. Om Shanti 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 Om.